So I was having a conversation with a good friend today, and we were discussing the various joys and sorrows of life, tragedies, beautiful times, successes, failures, etc. And I have a particular worldview that is pretty much governed by what I see in the Bible concerning the character and nature of God. I don't see God as passively involved in the affairs of humanity or the universe. I see God as sovereignly and actively involved in everything, good as well as evil. I know a lot of people don't like that. I don't care, really, that they don't like that. It doesn't necessarily sit well with me all the time, especially when I am perceiving the bad times. But I kind of liken it to stars. If it were sunny all the time, we would never appreciate the stars. And the stars never shine so beautifully as they do against the backdrop of a dark sky, a dark space, a deep space. And I think we're all thankful for stars. And we're thankful for the moon and the universe that we sort of get a small glimpse of just here on Earth at nighttime. But another area where I see that beautiful contrast of, I wouldn't necessarily call it darkness and light, but I would call it tension and resolution, or dissonance and resolution, is in the area of music. And being a musician, I see a lot of things about God and the kingdom of God from a musical perspective. And in particular, it's this area of dissonance and consonance, not TS, but CE, consonance. So there's what we would call resolution. Let me turn this up a little. That's resolution right there. This right here would be tension. And or if we were to do something like this by itself, that sounds cacophonic. It doesn't sound great by itself, and some people say, yes, but I love atonal music. That's of no concern to me. We're dealing with traditional Western music that we understand, and it consists of that sort of tension and resolution according to what we understand regarding harmony in our culture. So I'll give you an example. You know the song Amazing Grace. Okay, that sounds pretty basic, pretty straightforward, old traditional hymn harmony. So that's the end of it. But now I see. So if we break that down, it's pretty straightforward. It doesn't sound like there's a lot of dissonance in it. But if we take certain parts of the chord, there is what we call an augmented fourth or diminished fifth in there. That just sounds kind of gross, kind of demonic, devilish, ghouls, darkness, death. A little bit of Hendrix. Purple Haze. Well, that's in that chord. Watch. Right? There it is. So there's that tension, that dissonance that sounds bad by itself, but then it sounds great once you resolve it. And especially if you did something like this. Now watch. Hear that? So that's dissonance. That's what we call suspension in music theory, but it's dissonant. If I kept playing that all the time, and you just heard that major second pounding in your ear day and night, well, pretty soon, you put a bullet in your head. It's just gross. Nobody likes that sound. We don't walk around saying, please play for me a major second. Or if a band's playing, play the major second, right? We don't like that. We just don't. That's not something normal people do. But now listen to how good it sounds within the context. Now watch. Hear that? It's like, wow. And it adds spice. Instead of this, how about this? So that's dissonance, resolution, right? It resolves. And so it makes it sound beautiful. So the tension actually is made more beautiful by the resolution. Does that make sense? Hopefully that makes sense to you. And so that's really the way life is. You can't possibly look at a dark, tragic time in your life all by itself, isolated from the resolution that will come. Sorrow endures for a moment, but joy comes in the morning, right? And that sorrow is seen when you look at it through the eyes of a sovereign, omnipotent, interventionist creator. It's much more beautiful. We look at those trials, we look at those circumstances that have seem to have plagued us, and sometimes they're chronic. They seem like they're going on and on and on. It's like holding this out instead of going, no, we want that dissonance to hold out. It's holding out. And then that resolution just seems that much more beautiful. So try, that's a musical perspective. But if you can, try and look at your situation. I have to try and do it too, golly. The hardest thing I really went through was like an extended period of sickness, but it gave me new insight into things. Lost my dad. That gave me new insight into things. Go through a trial, a circumstance you thought you would never do. Do something you thought you would never do. Helps you have a little bit more appreciation for others, which is a good thing, right? You feel more compassionate toward others. So anyway, just wanted to run that by you today and take the dissonance of life in stride. We are all a part of a perfectly orchestrated score. And we are the instruments that God is using to play out that score. And there are times when it seems like it's really bad. For instance, you think about the death of Christ. It's like the darkest time in human history. The darkest, most dismal, horrific time in human history, there was displayed the entirety of God and his attributes. And what did it result in? The forgiveness of sin. So, that's not religious. That's just like a beautiful fact of tension and resolution. And that extreme tension is seen as ever so beautiful through that resurrection of his life and our life in him, and forgiveness because of that. Without which we would be experiencing constant tension of unforgiveness and no mercy. So anyway, thanks for enduring that little session, that little analogy of the kingdom of God, God's work, and music. And I hope you gleaned something special from it. Peace.